I would love to see Nicholas Boulton doing Xenon in the booth. I would die, dude.
Hi, I'm Nicholas Boulton, and here's a quick word from someone you might know. You're watching Gamer MD83's YouTube channel. Chauncey says you're not worthy to watch the channel, but stay tuned. It's magnificent. Thank you.
What's up, guys? I'm GamerMDD3, and I'm joined by a very special guest today. You guys obviously know him as Hawke in Dragon Age 2, but he's been in so many things. He's an actor, voice actor. I spotted you in Doctor Who and in Game of Thrones. And he's also been in a lot of video games like Final Fantasy, Mass Effect 3, Assassin's Creed, Dreamfall Chapters, Star Wars The Old Republic, every Dragon Age game, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so. Yeah, that's right.
I think I heard you in the last DLC of Dragon Age Inquisition, Jaws of Hackon.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, yeah, I was like, my ears immediately perk up. And also one of my favorite characters, Xenon The Antiquarian from the Black Emporium.
That was less of a character, more of a possession, I think.
Oh, he's just so brilliant. But welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah, no, everyone was like, oh, make sure to tell him thank you so much.
You're welcome anytime.
Awesome. Thank you. Someone wanted a clarification. Were you, if you remember, the character Vaughn in Dragon Age Origins?
Oh, yeah, I remember that very well. Vaughn, he's the nasty one, isn't he?
Yes, he was.
Yeah, that's one of mine.
People were like, wasn't he Vaughn?
Yeah, there was a big emotional response to his storyline, I think.
In the City Elf Origins.
He's quite a shocking character.
Yeah, very.
I like playing villains, though, so hey, yeah.
So yeah, he was Vaughn. I think to start off is, how did you get into voice acting?
Well, let me go way back. When I left drama school, I was studying acting at the Guildhall School of Music and Drama in the early 90s. And in my final year, I was entered into this competition for the British Broadcasting Corporation, BBC. It's called the Carlton Hobbs Award. And they auditioned about 100 actors from different drama schools and so on all around the country. And I won it. I won it, and also an actress won it as well. There were two of us who won it that year. And it gave me my first professional contract, which was something like 7 months working with the BBC on the radio drama company. So I went from acting school straight into radio acting for the kind of the oldest form of voice acting in a way.
Yeah.
After the onset of recorded media. So I had 7 months work with the BBC doing all their radio plays, and I've done them ever since as well. It's a sort of the job that keeps on giving. And that made me think about, what other forms of voice acting there are. I mean, I'm doing everything else as well, theatre, TV, movies, everything that you can. You have to be as versatile as possible these days just to make a living, So it kind of led me into that, and then I started doing commercial voiceovers for TV and radio for the commercial breaks. And then I think it must have been 5 years ago that I kind of suddenly sort of bust down the door into video games. And I wanted to do it for a long time, but it's one of these things. It's kind of difficult to get the door open. But once you got the door open, you got your toe in the door, with any luck, they like you, and away you go. And it's been very good to me. Very good to me indeed.
Wow. So before you were acting on screen or in theater professionally, you were doing it through voice.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's
that's cool.
It's run concurrently throughout my entire career, so it's it's something, it's
interesting. So you said you do a bit of theater. You had told me previously that you had just finished a play.
That's right.
What play was that?
Well, this is it was a long job. This is a contract that lasted 2 years with the Royal Shakespeare Company.
Oh,
Um,
I love Shakespeare.
well, this is the Royal Shakespeare Company, but what we were performing wasn't Shakespeare. It
Oh, they
was,
don't. Oh,
as the name suggests, but they do other shows as well. New writing and all sorts of things like that. And these were two plays that were adapted from books by a writer, an English writer called Hilary Mantel. And they're called Wolf Hall and Bring Up the Bodies. And they basically deal with the story of Thomas Cromwell in the court of Henry VIII, the king who
wow.
was not very nice to his wives, that guy, the big chap. I've played him a couple of times, actually.
Really?
Yeah, I played Henry VIII in a children's play called The Prince and the Pauper. And I have to say my performance was slightly different to Nat Parker's, who was playing the king in the Royal Shakespeare Company version, because it's a bit more serious. But, so yeah, we did these productions. There were 2 3-hour plays that took us from Stratford upon Avon, where that's the home of the Royal Shakespeare Company, to 6 months on the London West End stage at the Aldwych Theatre in London. And then we had a little gap, and they rang us up and said, we're taking you to Broadway. So this year, from March until beginning of July, we were at the Winter Garden Theatre in Broadway in New York, and having an absolute blast. I mean, I'd been to New York once before. I'd spent about 2 weeks there, Christmas 1999. And then this is the first time I come back to the States, and I was there for 4 months, and it was just, it was fantastic.
Oh, I can imagine.
It was really
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it was cool.
So you do quite a variety of things, act on camera and in theater. You do voiceovers for video games and narrate audiobooks.
That's right.
And probably much, much more. You play the guitar, as I just realized.
I wouldn't call it playing. I kind of noodle about a bit on it.
Do you have a favorite?
Gosh. It's very tough to say I've got a favorite. I mean, there are moments that stand out to me in all the different areas.
They're all your babies.
I don't want to give up any of them for, in favor of one thing. So, I think there's one thing that always springs to mind was a movie I did a few years ago. It's called Arn, the Knight Templar. It's a Swedish crusader epic.
Oh, I've seen pictures of that, yeah.
And for me, the moment that kind of, I mean, when I wanted to be an actor, I wanted to be an actor since I was about 6 years old. And when I was 11, I decided that's what I was going to do. And I had my idea of what acting was about when I was 11. And so several years ago, when I'm doing this show, there's a scene where a whole bunch of us are on horseback wearing chainmail with swords, and we're galloping down a hill into an army of Saracen warriors. And I was suddenly that 11-year-old boy again. I was like, this is it. This is what I remember. This is what I wanted to do when I was 11. And now I'm doing it. And that's
awesome.
A big moment for me.
That's so cool. Have you played the Dragon Age games?
I have, yeah. I've played Dragon Age Origins and I've played Dragon Age 2. I haven't completed any of the games, but I've played a lot to get immersed into it and find out, how it all works and what have you. I haven't played Dragon Age Inquisition yet, so I don't know much about that. But I'll get around to that, I'm sure. I mean, I've heard good things about it, so, But yeah, I try to play the games that I'm involved in, and some of the games that I'm not involved in. So I get, so that when you're in studio and they throw a script at you, it's not kind of like, out of the blue, and you get some kind of understanding. Yeah.
Understanding, yeah. In Dragon Age Inquisition, I've said it before. My favorite moment of Dragon Age Inquisition was Hawke. It was just such a big moment for me. Especially seeing the transition that he had gone through, especially diplomatic Hawke, charismatic Hawke, because my Hawke was just a sweetheart in Dragon Age 2. And seeing him come back, like he was tired, like this tired hero.
This view reminds me of my home in Kirkwall. I had a balcony that overlooked the whole city. I loved it at first, but after a while, all I could see were the people out there depending on me.
Oh. I was like, it's perfect. It's perfect. That's where he became my favorite protagonist of any BioWare game. It was amazing to see that. So you got to get on it. Dragon Age Inquisition.
I remember the scene. I remember going and recording that scene, and I thought, that's really nice. It just suddenly felt like there was a kind of around it, sort of not really necessarily an ending, but certainly, a journey towards a culmination of his story. Which
Definitely,
is,
yeah.
It felt
especially
good.
when the Inquisitor asks him, what's it feel like? And he says, I'll let you know. Like, it's not over yet,
Absolutely.
I love it.
Does it ever get any easier?
I'll let you know.
How did you get the role of Hawke? Because I know you were in Dragon Age Origins. Did they have you already in mind, or did you audition?
I was auditioned, definitely. But I mean, I'd done a fair bit of work, for quite a few different characters on Dragon Age Origins, and mostly working with Caroline Livingstone, the voice director, the director of the actors. And I think I must have made an impression with her because she specifically asked me to come in to audition for Hawke, and the rest is history. So yeah, I was lucky to be in the right place at the right time.
Definitely. Which do you prefer to play as? Diplomatic, sarcastic, or aggressive Hawke?
Well, I think I'm kind of a mixture of all three. It's terrible because when I come close to playing those games, I want to go down various different, nasty routes or sarcastic routes. And then I thought, no, I can't do that. Got to be nice. So let's go diplomatic. But then I go, no, I wanted to be sarcastic. No, I wanted to be humorous. And then I'll sort of try to play around with it and what have you. But I think I quite like sarcastic Hawke, and I like it all. It's always, when you play a diplomatic character, it's a bit boring. Okay, let's just go the obvious.
He's a Boy Scout.
Do you know what I mean? Exactly. So it's more fun to go villainous or, whatever.
Or funny, yeah. Sarcastic Hawke.
I'm a bit of a completionist as well, though, so I like to kind of go, let's see what happens if I go this way. And then, So a bit of a mishmash.
And then Dragon Age 2, it's kind of like, once you whichever selection you stick to more, your Hawke pretty much starts to become that. It's not like he's this neutral thing and you could pick whatever. Like, he just starts to form this personality, which is awesome. Which did you enjoy as an actor performing?
Well, a lot of the sarcastic stuff's great fun.
He's so funny.
It's great fun, right? You think, you'd say that, of course. That's a lot of fun. I think that's the most fun.
I'm assuming you were told from the beginning that this was going to be a game that spanned a 10-year time period. How did you approach?
This Dragon Age.
Dragon Age 2, yeah.
Yeah. Right.
How did you approach the voicing of Hawke with that in mind?
You have to keep consistency.
Yeah.
So, you could try and age, but the problem is if you start to put, an age character in, it then becomes more acted. And if you're playing the central character, you need to be kind of neutral. You need to be, it's tough. It's a tough part to play if you're playing the hero, because you need to be a kind of, what would you call it? A sort of a chalkboard for somebody to draw their ideas on, for the player to identify with you. You need to be perhaps not as much of an extreme character than
like
a sounding board for their ideas in the game and how they want to play it. So I didn't go down the route of trying to age him up, but except in the way that perhaps after the experiences that he'd been through would tire you out or make you kind of more irritable or whatever. That kind of progression happens. But we didn't consciously go down a route of making him sound younger at the start and older at the end. Just more experience, I think.
Did you ever add anything to Hawke that was not on the script?
I can't. Gosh, it's a long time since we recorded it.
Yeah, it is.
I'm sure there will have been moments where there was some ad-libbing going on. But the writers are so great at BioWare. They're very tight and they kind of, it's all there for you. And if you need to change something, it was always a way of sending a message through. Caroline was there with the writers, in the next room or whatever, and they'd suggest something to her and they'd say yay or nay. And yeah, there were things, I'm sure there were things that were changed in the performance, certain little things. I can't think of any to hand, but yeah.
Is it hard to bring a character to life performing with your voice alone? Like, how do you find the character?
No, it's tough. It's very tough. You're doing stuff out of context and out of sequence and all the rest of it. And sometimes you're presented with a script on the day and you're looking through it and going, how do I make head or tail of this? Because of course you've got different dialogue trees to follow.
Yeah.
And when you look at the script in front of you, it kind of jumps around all over the place. You'll have some scenes that are kind of clear and obvious. And it's always much easier the other act, because you do it on your own, you do it in
Right.
isolation from all the other actors. It's a lot easier if another actor has gone in and broken the ice and recorded their lines, and you respond to them. It's much more easier to be organic that way. And if you're forging actors, a lot of the time I was, as
You were the first one recording.
Antagonist, I'm the first one recording. Exactly. You just you make a decision, and you kind of have a dialogue with your director, and you decide together. She has an understanding how she wants it to sound, where the story's going, and so there's a lot of conversation to and fro about how to perform the scenes, and then you give various takes, and then you settle on the one that's closest to it. You give alternative takes as well, so that if something doesn't quite fit when you slot the next actor's voice in, you've got a bit of leeway. You can try maybe this take or the alternative take and so on. So an awful lot of it is down to, there's your performance, but then after that, it's the choices that are made by the developers to choose which piece of dialogue fits. And if it doesn't work, then you can always go back and record it again. That's the kind of the bare bones of it, I suppose. But yeah, it's tough to sometimes it's tough to find that kind of organic through line to perform, to make it sound like it's immediate and it's natural acting.
Yeah.
The danger is you go the other way and you'll end up sounding exactly the same, or line after line after line, neutral.
Right.
You don't want that.
I've always imagined that's hard to do, especially with people creating their own Hawks.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, if I make this kind of articulation in my voice and it doesn't represent the Hawk that this person is making, it might change their point of view of the character or something. That must be tough.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because when you've got different threads, you can play diplomatic or sarcastic, aggressive, or those three. Sometimes you'll go through a scene and you'll come to a resolution, which is only one choice. So if you go too far in one direction, you can't come back. So you've got to always be aware of where the character is, where the middle ground is, so that you kind of push the envelope one way or push it the other way, but you can always come back and keep the kind of the character consistent.
True. Or else he'd start sounding really bipolar. One thing I adored about Hawke was how many sides we got to see of him. He was a son, a brother, a nobody, a champion, a friend, a lover, sarcastic, sweet, aggressive. We got to connect with him on so many relatable levels. When it came to portraying all of this, did you have a particular character that you preferred to interact with?
That's a tough one to answer.
I know, right?
Because I don't want to be favoritist. I mean, the kind of the friction between him and Anders was very entertaining, I think.
Yeah.
That was great fun. But there's awful, it's hard. It's really hard to choose. I don't think I can choose one.
There's some great
character.
interactions with everyone, yeah.
That's a magnificent non-answer for you.
Which was your favorite romance?
Well, I always had a thing for Isabel myself, but then that's just that's just me. It's great. I mean, I loved it. The stuff between him and Fenris, and it all works brilliantly. But
yeah, they're all pretty good.
Yeah. It's just something about that pirate outfit.
There is something about her, isn't there? I romanced Isabella in my second playthrough, but my first was Meryl.
Right. Oh, Meryl's cute. Meryl's cute.
It's adorable. It's like Varric says, it's almost too adorable. Hawke's siblings, Bethany and Carver. In the beginning of Dragon Age 2, depending on Hawke's class, one of them dies. With Bethany, Hawke is the protective older brother, and with Carver, it's a constant struggle for Hawke because of Carver's sibling rivalry issue. How did you feel about your performance with each of them, and was there one you preferred?
The performance, or which performance did I prefer, or which did I prefer, my brother or my sister? Marvelously voiced by wonderful actors, one of whom at least is a good friend of mine, so they're great.
Oh, really?
That was a tough one, I don't know. I just felt there was it's a tough one. The relationship, I think, with Bethany was more rewarding. I felt
It was sweet. I love his relationship with Bethany.
But then there's terrible
Although,
guilt involved when you kind of, decide which one you have to sacrifice. So
yeah, I do love Carver and sarcastic Hawke, though, because
Yeah.
he's always poking fun at him.
absolutely, couldn't agree more.
What are your most memorable moments or lines when voicing Hawke?
What was that bit? What was it? I think it was one of the DLCs. Was it in Orlais? When the Duke falls to his death, and there's that fantastic
Yeah.
CSI Miami line. Is it Miami? That one. The Duke
You
has
just
fallen
needed
from
the
favour.
sunglasses.
Yeah, exactly. Only the sunglasses were missing. So, okay, come on. How could you not have at least something to suggest? Sunglasses, But that was entertaining, yeah. And the infamous Chateau Haine bee sting.
That's one of my questions. Have you ever been stung by a bee?
I have once. When I was very young, I have a memory of running barefoot on the lawn and on the garden in the summer and standing on one and getting stung on my foot and howling in agony. But
the same. Yeah, you're like, I got this. From experience.
I just pulled up my sense memory and there it was.
That's like, I think, the most legendary line in any Dragon Age.
It was a lot of fun. When you get those lines in the script, I was looking at it going, really? We can do this? Okay. If you ask me to do it, I'll do it. And I'll give it, I'll notch it up to 11 if you want.
Perhaps one of the most shocking moments in any Dragon Age game, was the death of Leandra, Hawke's mother.
Right.
Man, that scene made my stomach sink, where she just like walking like a zombie towards him. What did you think when you saw that in the script? How did you prepare for that?
You can't prepare because it's put in front of you. You have to react, and you have to kind of dig deep for those moments. And just hope that that you've succeeded. But it's shocking because there are characters in it that there's a lot of emotional investment and a lot of identification as well. And when somebody like that dies, it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah.
But as an actor, you just got to climb inside it and try and aim for the truth.
Yeah, I can imagine as an actor that was a great opportunity to try to nail. Another major moment was Anders' betrayal. You said that you enjoyed some of the interactions between Hawke and Anders.
Yeah.
How'd you feel about that big betrayal? What would you? I believe you haven't actually reached that in the game, right?
No.
Okay, but
I know, I
what would you do?
Lines, so.
What would you do with Anders?
I got a great big fish and slapped him around the face a couple of times and said no.
Hawke's return in Dragon Age Inquisition. How did you feel about returning as Hawke, and what did the writers tell you about how the character had transitioned from game to game?
I can't remember what they told me how he'd transitioned, but it was pretty evident in the lines in the scene, where his head was at. And it's nice when you've got writing like that. That was good, good writing, easy to perform, and the writing does it for you. In a way, so long as you connect to it. And it's very little preparation. You have to be kind of immediate and respond in the moment. But yeah, it was lovely to come back and to give him a little more kind of world weariness and that kind of grizzled experience. And you can kind of imagine him after that, or before that, just sitting in a bar, with a
yeah, exactly.
Jesus, what have I been through? Don't ask me to kill any more Darkspawn. All right,
I'm done.
I'm enjoying my burger and fries.
That would have been a perfect ending. I would have been so happy with that. I'm sure you have a special place for Hawke, in your mind, in your heart, as a character that you've voiced. What would you have done with Hawke in the Fade?
This was recorded a long time ago.
Oh my God. No.
What happened?
Well, you could sacrifice him. You could leave him there to die.
Oh, see, I don't think I got that far either,
Oh, shoot. I just ruined it for you.
No.
No, you leave him with this big spider.
Yeah.
This big fear demon. And he pretty much... he pretty much dies.
Right.
I think sarcastic Hawke, his last line is like, spiders. Why does it have to be spiders or something like that? Yeah, would you be able to leave him in the Fade, like go down and...
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. It's kind of
You're like, you're coming with me, bye, Alistair.
Well, it's because it's not just that it's Hawke. It's like, he's got my voice as well. How can I leave him behind? I can't do that.
Now, if we could transition into Xenon.
Oh, yes. Well, you want me to transition into Xenon right now?
Would you?
There was a lot of that.
Everything Xenon says is pure gold. But what's your favorite? It's is there anything that he says that's like your favorite thing?
Well, I think it's don't manhandle the urchin. I think it's he's not for sale. Find your own. That's just great. And the line about socks and what have you. I know
you can never have enough socks.
I think that was a little kind of nod towards, I think, was it Harry Potter? There was a character in that who could never have enough socks. Was it one of the Hagrid or Dumbledore or somebody? I'm not sure.
Oh, that's right. That never clicked.
It was just a little bit of a little kind of nod to that.
Xenon is a Harry Potter fan.
Yeah. Well, you've been alive that long. You've got to get through all the movies, all the books, several times over, and know them inside out.
Out of the three companions that Xenon has in the Black Emporium, Thaddeus the Golem, Urchin the Urchin, or Chauncey the Tiny Bear, which is your favorite?
That's it. Now, see, somebody asked me the other day on Twitter, do you still have Chauncey? And I couldn't remember what Chauncey was. I said, what's a Chauncey? It was your teddy bear. The
little tiny bear.
I think, and my response was, well, Xenon's very kind of protective of his possessions. I think he'd hang on to Chauncey, definitely. I think I was channeling more of the Emperor Palpatine in Inquisition than I was in Dragon Age 2. So it's a bit annoying. I'd love to have had a second go at that to get in closer to what I did in Dragon Age 2.
I was thinking with your narration of audiobooks, how long have you been doing that?
Around about the same amount of time as I've been doing video games, so about 4 or 5 years, something like that, yeah.
I see.
I mean, most recently I did a whole canon of books by a writer called Laura Kinsale, who writes historical romances. So I did all 12 of her books over the last few years,
wow.
Which is a terrific job to get. But before that, I've been doing all sorts of different kinds of stuff as well. Like, there was a naval historical series of books, and some thrillers and some science fiction and all sorts.
Oh, cool.
But Laura was terrific. She hunted me down and specifically asked for me to narrate her books.
Oh,
which
nice.
was a great honor, and a great gig to get. And now she's, I've got some more coming up of another writer that she's put me in touch with, Elizabeth Kingston. So I've got a few more romances to narrate there. Yeah. So it's
awesome.
It's great. It's the toughest work there is, though, for voice acting or any kind of acting, I think.
Really?
It's
because you've got multiple
physically,
characters.
it's so demanding. You're sitting in a studio, from 10 in the morning until 5 or 6 in the evening, an hour off for lunch and a couple of coffee breaks, and you're reading. It's a real kind of marathon for your vocal cords. You find after an hour or so you'll get a bit lightheaded because you're breathing so much because you're doing all this talking. And at the end of the day, you just feel like, you've been bodybuilding with your jaw. And you just go home and you've got to be dead quiet. You don't want to talk to anyone. I had enough of talking, But it's great fun because you get to make all the choices. There's a dialogue between you and the author, if the author's, involved. Otherwise, it's you and a studio technician and maybe a producer. The producer on those books was a terrific guy called Garrick Hagan, who, for the Star Wars fans out there, was the guy who played Biggs Darklighter, who's Luke Skywalker's best buddy.
Oh, I love Biggs.
He's
Really?
a lovely guy. Yeah, Garrick, he's the producer of those books. He's a terrific guy. Yeah.
Oh, I'd be freaking out the whole time. You know what would be amazing, and I'd pay money for this, and I know a lot of people would pay money for this, is if you narrated Varric's book, Heart in Hightown.
Oh, I'm game for that. You bet.
Oh, that'd be so cool.
Come on, he's got a great voice. He's got to do it.
Oh, no, but no, you've got to do it. Dreamfall Chapters. I've never played this game, but I've heard really good things about it, and you play one of the main playable characters.
Yeah.
What's your experience been like on that game?
I haven't played it, but I'm familiar with the storyline and the character Kian and the people that he comes into contact with. It's a terrific, another terrific job. There's some really good writing in it and some interesting character developments, and it's fun to do. Ragnar Tornquist is the guy who's the developer of that and who directs me and so on. And yeah, it's great. We do it. I go into a studio in London and I record the lines there while he's sitting in Oslo in Norway.
Oh wow!
And we kind of I've never actually met him, not yet. We've said hello over Skype and that's it. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. And we've done four chapters of that so far. I think it'll be wrapping up pretty soon.
Oh, cool! So you've been working on that recently?
Yeah, just very recently. Yeah,
okay,
can't tell you anything about that, obviously. There's more to come. It was tweeted. It's fine. There's more to come. Yeah.
Game of Thrones.
Uh-huh.
When you walked out, I was like, I know that person.
Well, I spoke to makeup and I asked them, what if I had a little kind of stripe of, I don't know, something like Nutella across my nose? And they went, no, I don't think so. No, not for this character. I went, okay.
Oh, that would have been brilliant.
I'll work that in somewhere someday.
You have to. You kind of look like default Hawke.
Well, now that's I'd take that as a compliment. He's a handsome chap. And I've always wondered, what I don't know the answer to this, but what the developers do to get their idea of how they want certain characters that they build to look, the default versions to look like. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure they draw from all sorts of different inspirations.
Inspirations, yeah.
You get lots of different inspirations, lots of different character references and what have you. And it was just a pure accident of fate that he looked incredibly handsome, just like myself. So. I just heard myself.
How did you land the role in Game of Thrones?
Well, I was just coming to the end of the West End run of Wolf Hall and Bring Up the Bodies, the Royal Shakespeare play we were talking about. Mm-hmm. And I got a call from my agent saying, got an audition for you. Go in tomorrow morning and here are the sides. This is what you've got to do. Try and learn it and get in. And they gave me a script, just 2 pages of script, just the bit pertinent to my character. There's a lot of secrecy involved in Game of Thrones. Nobody gets a full script. And I had a look at it, and there it was in Valyrian. And I'm not too familiar with Valyrian. I'd actually, at that point, I hadn't even watched Game of Thrones.
Really?
I caught up with it before my episode was broadcast, though, and that took a considerable degree of concentration to get through the whole box set up to Series 5. But I managed to do it, and I didn't strain myself, you'd be happy to hear. But so I just went into the audition, and they basically said, can you just do it in English? Because they got the English and the Valyrian underneath it. So don't worry about trying for the Valyrian, just let's do it in English. And I said, yeah, okay, well, I'll do it in English, but I'll do it in Valyrian as well, just so, I can give you some idea of what my take on it is, if that's okay. And they went, yeah, fine, do it. And
awesome.
And it was fun. I just went in, and the brief for the character was a personality with huge charisma and an even huger voice.
I could see that.
So I had the direction right there. So, well, that's okay. You just go in there and give it some, which is what I did, and I was lucky I landed it. They chose me, and nice. I found out a week or 2 later. I was actually on my way out of the country to go on a holiday, and I got halfway there. I was changing flights, and I turned my phone on, and I saw I had 10 messages from my agent. I booked to go away on my holiday for 10 days, and my agent said, "Come back, you've got Game of Thrones." So I had to curtail my holiday by about 5 days, which was, thinking, well, God, this could have been a disaster, except it meant that I was going to go and spend 2 weeks in the south of Spain filming Game of Thrones. And
Oh, wow.
well, that makes up for it all. It's just fantastic. And it was amazing.
That's
It was an amazing experience. Yeah.
I can imagine. Is there anything that you're working on now that you could tell people about, that you want people to know?
Well, there's Dreamfall Chapters, which we've just spoken about. I've got a few more sessions of those coming up. And I've got these next audiobooks. Other than that, I'm waiting to see what the next big one might be. Keeping my fingers crossed that there is going to be one, because in our business as an actor, you get to the end of a big job and you go, well, that's it, I'm never going to work again. There's clearly never ever going to be any other work after that, and so you just got to maintain your kind of positivity and be open to the opportunities that present themselves and hope that there are some. So yeah, I'm waiting to see what the next big one is. But don't you worry, when I find out what it is, I'll let you know.
Yeah, please, that'd be awesome.
Sure.
Yeah, best of luck with that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for doing this. It was an absolute pleasure, and again, everyone sends their thank you for not only for this, but also for your performances, Hawke, because Hawke is a huge BioWare favorite. So
I had no real idea of what I was getting into when I got the job. I had no idea. I wasn't really familiar with BioWare games up until that point, and I'd heard of Baldur's Gate and things like that. I think that was for BioWare, and I think I might have played that eons ago. And I have to say, I've kind of been blown away by the response of the fans and the gamers. It's a big thing, and people get. It's very touching how emotionally attached people get, to the characters that I've given voice to, and it's lovely. Yeah. It's an honor. So thank you.
Thank you so much to you guys for asking questions and for participating. Again, I hope we get to talk again one day when you're doing some big role again.
You bet. No, I'd be happy to. Very happy to.
Awesome.
It's been a pleasure. The pleasure's entirely mine.
Awesome. Thank you. Again, thank you. And I'll talk to you guys later.
About this lamp fitting here on the wall.
Oh, it's a lamp on your head.
We're good.
Ready. I know, right? It's always the intro's always
What's
like.
Gonna happen?
Yeah, we're back. Could you hear me okay?
You're a bit pixelated.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You look fine.
Oh, I'm feeling a bit pixelated. Well, hang on a minute. I've got fans.
You became the character.
Incredible thing has happened for me. You see, in Xenon, you've got a mixture of the Emperor Palpatine and Mr. Magoo.
Don't step on the tiny bear, Chauncey. Okay, I have to try not to freaking die.
I think you do it better than me.